there has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch Michael Ryder.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, 27-year veteran of the NYPD. Folks, it looks a little different today. This is my Florida location, thus the white image behind me with the Police Off the Cuff emblem. Anyway, welcome to the show. A lot of things happening in regards to the Jody Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke case. And it's rather disturbing, I might say, that these folks are just, as the investigation continues, it gets more and more disturbing in regards to what's going on and what has been going on and how long it's actually been ignored. You see the little flyer on the scene. Shocking evidence, victim of Ruby Franke's business partner tells all. So there were some real victims in regards to Jody Hildebrandt's methods of therapy. I don't know any state that would issue a license for what she was doing. Just absolutely horrific. And we're going to see some evidence of that. But it's just, another warrant has uncovered some other things in her home that we'll also go over, some devices that are extremely disturbing. And again, this case has been in the forefront for a while based on Ruby Franke's 8 Passengers YouTube show that basically highlighted live on the air bad things going on. On the screen there is a picture of Adam Steed and, of course, Jody Hildebrandt, who was the marriage counselor to Adam Steed and his wife. And supposedly she did some horrific things in regards to him and his family. It just totally outrageous. I'm going to play a little bit of this from Law and Crime, and you're going to see what I'm referring to. Just this has been not the exception, but rather the rule in regards to this.
Of abusing Franke's children. Hildebrandt owns Connections Classroom, a business that offers counseling for couples and individuals, along with coaching for businesses. Franke worked with Hildebrandt at Connections. Prior to Connections, Hildebrandt worked as a therapist, treating people who struggled with addiction to drugs and alcohol. One of her former clients is a man named Adam Steed. Steed says he was sexually abused by someone with the Boy Scouts of America when he lived in Idaho as a child. He then moved to Utah. He became married, and that's when he met Jody Hildebrandt. When did you first encounter Jody Hildebrandt?
So my Mormon bishop asked me and my wife to go to her. I had just finished passing the statute of limitations in Idaho for criminal and civil sexual child abuse. They had this bizarre statute for 5 years. And I had changed that with my dad and a lot of people that we had done a grassroots movement together. And I moved down to Utah, and I had just finished a settlement case with Boy Scouts of America. And then, like, immediately afterwards, my bishop asked me to go to Jody Hildebrandt with my wife for therapy.
Adam Steed says he and his wife were seeking counseling for ordinary issues that come up in any marriage.
Yeah, just normal marriage issues. Outside the fact there was a lot of stress on our marriage because we had done a settlement for child abuse with Boy Scouts of America, and we were having we had a 1-year-old baby and we had a newborn coming along, and we were both in school at Brigham Young University trying to do all of our credits, and my ex-wife had some issues as well that were kind of difficult, and I had trauma from what happened to me in the past, and we were just trying to be normal people and live a normal life, and start and have a beautiful life after some of the things we'd gone through.
Folks, obviously it sounds like they were really in need of a professional therapist, of someone that could help them through their marital issues. They had, both of them, as Adam Steed said, had issues themselves. And then they go to Jody Hildebrandt, and things went somewhat awry.
It's hard for me to talk about this stuff because it's so traumatic.
What year was this that you were being counseled by Jody Hildebrandt?
2008. We just finished the scouting settlement. I think I had the psych evaluation for the damage it had done to me somewhere in like the late fall. And then I think around Christmas or winter or something, we had settled this case, or somewhere in the early January or February. And I think it was in April that I had started therapy with Jody Hildebrandt, a group therapy with Jody Hildebrandt, with me and my wife.
How did the counseling start? Did it seem to go well at first, or were there red flags right away?
I will tell you a story that Jody Hildebrandt's more sophisticated than a normal person in a lot of ways. She evolved into what she became. She put us in a phase 1. There's phase 2 and phase 3 of the particular group she was in at the point. And phase 1, it wasn't very intense. It was lighthearted and fun. And, think of like a PG movie or something, and a lady that's just charismatic and fun, and teaching these principles about delusion, denial, and all this kind of stuff. Codependency, using small examples in people's lives where they didn't realize they were in this state, and the whole room laughing about it. That was phase 1. And it was, couples, all happy couples, thinking they were with this incredible lady. When she separated the couples into all women and all men groups, then after she gained everyone's trust, then really bad things began to happen. And what's different in my case is that when I chose to leave this like cult-like group,
we've used that word before on this show to describe what's occurring here, and cult-like world here. And I mean, you could look at Adam Steed here and just see the psychological damage, as you can see him thinking as he's being asked questions, and it's really sad to see that, and disturbing.
Jody tried to punish me, and she worked through BYU Honor Code office and legal measures to try to hurt me. And I have the emails between my ex-wife and her planning out all this stuff, talking about what the real issues in our marriage were, and then them evolving that into something drastically different.
Folks, I want to just ask you a question. What therapist in this world uses punishment against their client? I've never heard a therapist punishing a client before. This is the first. And if anyone has, just email me. Let me know that you've heard of other therapists using punishment as a way to change people's behavior in therapy. And it's not the role of a therapist to use punishment.
the truth of how dangerous this lady really is. And clients that are close to her that are probably not really good people in the first place, but that she enhances their abilities under her guidance to do incredibly criminal things.
Adam claims that Jody Hildebrandt conspired with his then wife to accuse him of sexually abusing their child.
I never had the courage to talk about this openly because the damage was so bad. After Jody and my ex-wife got done trying to make me look like a child abuser and a sexual addict and a rapist and everything else, having been a victim that came forward to change the laws to protect children, and having the insecurities that victims have, the stigma and all that stuff, and Jody working on me to try to make me look like I was a predator in her final stage when I refused to pay all the money and refused to stay in the group and was so uncomfortable with it. What they did to me, the coordinated attack to create the solution and all the stuff, I have all the documentation. And if these fine, I mean, I'm Jody coaching my ex-wife in fine. I'll share that in this other interview, the exact words as she coaches her through how to make people think that they're coming up with the idea themselves.
Adam Steed, a client of Jody Hildebrandt. Now let's connect the dots, right? Now she becomes partners with Ruby Franke, and the same things that was happening to Adam Steed is now happening to the children of Ruby Franke. Absolutely scary. This just came, cops finding a panic room in Jody Hildebrandt's house. This is rather new and interesting, but again, a horrific situation. Let me play this.
Is here in this secluded Ivins, Utah neighborhood where Ruby Franke's 12-year-old emaciated son broke free. But when first responders arrived on the scene, inside this home, they found a panic room.
He says it's a large room. It's a panic room.
A shocking revelation made by first responders who were called to Jody Hildebrandt's home back in August. After a young boy escaped from the home and ran to a neighbor for help, investigators found a panic room inside.
Hey, LT, there's a panic room inside the garage. Downstairs, underneath the garage.
Radio recordings from the Santa Clara Ivins Police Department captured the dramatic moments when the room is discovered.
He says it's a large room. It's a panic room.
First responders were called to the home in southern Utah on August 30th after a harrowing 911 call came into police.
This kid has obviously been, I think he's been.
This 911 call is so disturbing. Every time I hear it, it just, it has shivers go up my spine when I hear this. A neighbor actually responding this way. It's not his child, but just seeing what was done to this child.
He's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
The caller told first responders a 12-year-old boy arrived at his front door, emaciated and asking for food and water. Investigators later determined the boy was the son of Ruby Franke, the YouTuber mom who became popular from her 8 Passengers YouTube page. For a time, Franke documented the lives of her family, including her husband, Kevin, and 6 children, to the more than 2 million subscribers. Her YouTube page has since been deactivated.
Eve has been amazingly well behaved for being in town.
But
for
you yelled at me.
You know, it's funny how every once in a while the kids just pop out and sort of let the audience know exactly who their mother is. You know, you hit me, or you yelled at me, you didn't feed me. You know, like all of this stuff comes out, and it's the way she treats her kids is live on screen and just horrific.
Shh. The fact that I yell at my kids is a secret. We don't want our viewers to know. That never happens. In my house, I never yell.
Investigators say Frankie's 12-year-old
You know, she looks demented when she just said that. I'm just going to replay that. She almost looks demented.
Oh, that never happens. In my house, I never yell.
Wow. Wow. Could you see her face there? That is some serious psychosis.
Investigators say Frankie's 12-year-old was found emaciated last month with open wounds and duct tape around his wrists and ankles. They say he crawled out of a window of this home owned by Jody Hildebrandt, Ruby Franke's business partner.
Our whole life's goal is to make our kids happy. And most of the time we're trying to make our kids happy. What we're actually doing is being in distortion and inviting them into a controlling dynamic.
Both Hildebrandt and Franke were arrested and eventually.
You know, I've never, ever also, to get back to a therapist, I've never, ever heard a therapist use the term controlling dynamic. Some of the words she uses are not the words of a therapist. They're words of someone, a torturer. Agency. Remember we brought that up in the last podcast, the word agency? That sounds like a cult using a word like that.
Charged with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse each. They were set to appear at a bail hearing this week, but hours before the hearing, it was continued. Right now, they're still being held in the Washington County Jail in southern Utah. In all, 4 of Frankie's children were taken to the Department of Child and Family Services after the 12-year-old escaped. Per the recording of first responder audio, it's possible the other children were being held in the panic room.
Temple, we've got it, but we can't get into it. My guess is that would be where they're at.
First responders say a large Fort Knox vault door led to the room with a wheel on the front.
Yeah, he says it's downstairs and it's underneath one of the garages, and he's calling it a safe room. He said something about Fort Knox, so I don't know if it has a Fort Knox door or safe on it, but that's what he's talking about.
This one says Liberty Safe Company. It's got a big wheel on the front.
Law and Crime Network reached out to the Santa Clara Ivins Police Department for more information about the rescue and that panic room, but we're told that no new information or details could be released as the investigation is still ongoing. Reporting in Ivins, Utah.
Wow. A safe room, a panic room. Really, that makes me panic. Seeing a panic room. I've never known a therapist to have a panic room. That's the first time I've ever seen that. A panic room. Again, is that in the venue of a therapist to have a panic room? I sort of think not that a therapist having a panic room. I don't really get it. You guys get that? Anyone else have a problem with a therapist having a panic room? This is Ruby Franke, her husband, saying he believes his son about abuse claims against the mom.
Passenger's YouTube series, Kevin Franke's attorney now says the father of 6 is fighting for custody of his children.
There's a lot to be told. There's a lot of chapters in this book.
Law and Crime Network crews traveled to Provo, Utah this week to sit down with Kevin Franke's attorney, Randy Kester. He says his client had no idea his children were being abused and instead points the finger at Jody Hildebrandt, alleging she brainwashed the entire family.
That once she got involved in their lives, it just destroyed his family. It did. And he's now trying to recover from that and put it back together. He wants it back the way it was.
In recent days, Kevin Franke has stopped speaking with his estranged wife, Ruby, after she dropped bombshell news on him during a jailhouse phone call.
He hasn't spoken to Ruby for about 2 weeks now.
So he did speak with her after her arrest, it sounds like then.
He spoke with her. I think there are reports out there actually. He spoke with her a week ago Friday, and that was when he started to realize the broad perspective of the deception that he'd been fed. And in that discussion, found out a lot of things from her that he should have been told. He should have been involved. And after the phone call, he just decided that he'd been deceived and hasn't had contact with her since.
In fact, Kevin Franke hasn't even discussed the abuse allegations with his wife.
You know, folks, I find it hard to believe that Kevin Franke didn't know about this. Perhaps was somewhat party to it, maybe not in the same way because he's been out of the house for 14 months. But I really do find it hard that all of a sudden it's like, oh, I had no idea. I think he pretty much knew who Jody Hildebrandt was and is. And the more we uncover, the more layers of this onion we peel back, the more horrific things we find out. Folks, we're going to stay on top of this story. I wanted to do this video short to keep you guys apprised of what's going on. I want everyone to have a wonderful day. This is Bill Cannon from a Police Off the Cuff. Real crime stories are just a video short. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll talk soon.
One episode just ain't enough.